Again, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Umineko. I'm just gonna continue off where we left off last time. And as you can see, all our save pages, in large part thanks to Vipexor, who is pretty much solely responsible for this, with the save reminders. The save pages are all full, and we had to start over. Yeah. Oh. Alright, since I had to change the audio settings, feel free to let me know if something is too loud or too quiet. Because I don't want to like blow anyone's ears out or be inaudible or any of that stuff. But yeah, aside from that, quick recap. From this point on, I'm only going to start recapping for like the arc that we're doing, and not the whole game anymore because it's, or the whole series anymore because it is far too complicated. Alright, that seems really plausible because it's loud on my end too. Should be better now. Yeah, alright. I don't think it's just you because it hurt my ears when I put on my headphones just now. So, yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, the series as a whole is just too long to recap. All you need to know is this is an island full of rich people who have money problems because of bad investments, etc. They have a rich granddad who has 10 tons of gold potentially hidden on the island somewhere that they're all on. The island that they're all on has been hit by a typhoon. So what that means is tensions are high, they are trapped, they all know it, and they are fighting over an inheritance. They also keep talking to each other about there being a witch who exists? Question mark? I don't know. It's really hard to say. And then there's another sort of level on which this is all happening, which is a meta level. Again, too complicated to just go over. I honestly don't know how to explain half of this stuff. However, there's a nice little playlist with all the YouTube VODs, or the Twitch VODs, but I've also started uploading these to YouTube. So here's a little link to the other VODs on Twitch so you can catch up if you want. And my YouTube page should pop up at some point. It's also on my About page. And yes, this is the continuation of the other story that I read. It's a very, very long story. Now what I don't understand is why I ended it here last time. What the? I'm very confused by myself at this point. I think maybe I loaded the wrong save. No, that's the right one. 46? So, yeah, that checks out. What? Apparently, last time we ended mid-sentence. Because that's just how I roll, apparently. I chose chaos that day. And that threw me off to a point where I don't know where we were left. Where I don't know what happened. Oh, no, we didn't. Okay, I got it. It's because it's... okay. It's a different character talking. There we go. I'm gonna cut all of this out of the VODs, just so you know. Gosh, so much chaos already. We've only just begun. Yes, so what happened last time was our protagonist has been in a sort of game of wits with the witch, Beatrice. And while that was going on, we started all over with this cycle that keeps happening where, you know, everyone dies, and then everybody goes to the island again and then dies again. And now we are back at the island at the beginning. And the focus last episode was on Ava, the aunt, and how she grew up, which was... She had a very, very rough time. Let's just put it that way. Everyone around her sucked, and she's become a very tough person as a result. Not necessarily in a good way. But a girl has issues. And that's kind of all you need to know for now, I think. So we're just gonna dive right in.
Kinzo-sama has already publicly displayed the location of the hidden gold within the epitaph under my portrait. The rules apply equally to all who can read the epitaph. If you discover the gold, I shall return everything to you. Tonight, I ask that you enjoy our battle of wits with Kinzo-sama to the fullest. I sincerely pray that this night will be both intellectual and elegant. Beatrice the Golden.
When Maria finished reading the letter that Beatrice had handed her, everyone was at a loss for words for a while. And then, they all broke the silence at once. Ridiculous! What a worthless, vicious prank! Seriously, there's no way Father gave up the head's ring. Beatrice? Ha! What a transparent prank, hoping to confuse us just by bringing up that name. Hey, who filled this dessert up with a little too much punch? I want to applaud you and praise you, so come clean, okay? Rosa?
Of course not. I wouldn't pull a prank by assuming Father's name.
Then, Aniki? Aniki? Me? Are you an idiot? It was Nissan, right? Only he could plan something this vulgar. Are you trying to mock me? I'm the one who wants to question you. Who is behind this ill-natured prank? Kraus beat the table and stared at everyone. Since that included the children too, he scared most of them. A letter from a mysterious person who claims to have been given full rights to Father's assets. Considering that the whole point of this family conference is the discussion of that subject, I think it's too hasty to call this a mere prank. We can't be sure. Maybe it really is one of Father's shady pranks. He might have planned this to shock us a bit, since we've been discussing the distribution of his inheritance without him. If Dad was the one who planned this, then we can't take what Maria-chan just read aloud as a joke, right? That's right. If you interpret the contents literally, then this is a test from Father. The epitaph of the witch has been displayed in the hall for quite some time now, so that any of us could solve it. There is plenty of notice. That means he was saying that the first person to solve it would be handed the inheritance along with all of his wealth, right? See? My magic granted your wish. Nothing so foolish could possibly be the case. It is an unshakable fact that my husband is the successor to the Ushiromiya family headship. Well, doesn't this letter shake that? This is a message from the person who was given full rights to all of Father's wealth. Nisan's right to become the head has been returned to a blank slate. The person who solves the riddle, the person who finds Beatrice's gold, will become the next head of the Ushiromiya family. Ridiculous. Do you think we can trust the meaningless words in that letter? That the seal was the real thing? There's no way we could trust that. Then let's try to go and ask Father directly. At this point, you can't get away with saying he's grumpy or feeling bad, right? The sealed wax clearly shows that this was from Father's representative. If you doubt that, then show some proof, Nisan. Show that this letter does not contain Father's will. Very well. It is just as you say. It no longer matters whether father is in a good mood or not. Let us go up and ask him directly. Let's do it. We'll ask Dad directly. Dad is Dad, so why would he act in such a roundabout way? And again, I guess that would be like him.
I wonder if you really should continue this discussion on the assumption that this letter came from Father.
Stupid Rosa. Isn't it obviously from Father? That letter is Father's. Isn't it obvious that he's giving the four of us an even chance to become the successor? Die, you brainless idiot.
Rosa really is dumb. If only she'd just give up and die. I'm sorry. That's right. I'm sorry.
Wow, they really are just, dunking on each other a lot compared to the other episodes. And it was bad in the other episodes. I'm glad I don't have siblings like that, do you? In the beginning, the adults had all doubted the credibility of the letter. But after realizing that this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance in the inheritance struggle for the three younger siblings, Ava changed her position, claiming that the letter was authentic. Rudolph and Rosa caught on and agreed. Outrageous! How can adults like you take such a worthless prank this seriously? I don't need to be Father to understand his contempt. Whoa. Not say, son. All we've got to do is ask Father and we're done, right? Won't everything be fine if Father just tells us that he doesn't know about any letter? Thank you for that gem, babe. Wow. The Book of Incantations was useless because the author had failed to run a spell check. That's a good one. And it's true. Because you said it met. Nissan, take responsibility and just get him to say that he doesn't know about the letter. This is no time to get scared just because he's in a bad mood, okay? He's still scared of Father at his age, isn't that idiot? If only he'd just give up and die. Yeah. Let's get this settled, clearly. He's probably eating in his study right now. Let's have him set down his chopsticks for just a moment. It's decided. Let's go. Kiria, wait here for a while. We'll go to check whether it's true or not and come back quickly. Thank you. I'll wait patiently for Gora-san to bring in dessert. The four siblings, Natsuhi and Hideyoshi, all arose from their seats forcefully and flew out into the hallway with a clatter. Afterwards, only the children, stunned completely speechless, Nanjo, who looked uncomfortable, and Kiria, who just shrugged, were left. In the middle of all this was Maria, who looked a little scared at the adults' sudden change. However, judging from her appearance, she didn't look like she realized the full meaning of what she just read. What in the world was that all about? I don't get it. They're all bastards. Do they really want the inheritance that much? Everyone, this is our parents' problem. It has nothing to do with us, so you mustn't worry about it. Even if you say that, they're so blatant about it. I can't believe them. Showing off their greed like that.
Ooh. Everyone is to believe together that we'll be happy. Ooh.
That's right. We all did promise. Come on, Battler-kun, Jessica-chan, you too. I feel horrible. We couldn't accept it at all, but we laid down our arms for the time being. We'd been vaguely aware of how filthy this family conference was going to be. However, after that 6-year blank, I couldn't help being shocked. When he saw that the children were completely dejected, Dr. Nanjo cleared his throat uncomfortably. It's an adult matter. It has nothing to do with all of you young people. Let us forget about it. And what if I could? I know it's hard, but forget it for now. All of your parents are fighting frantically to make your futures just a little brighter. Please, don't look at your injured parents with those cold eyes when they come back. No matter how much you ask us, Kirie-san, it'll be tough. If we could be happy with an explanation like that, we wouldn't be kids.
Everyone, be happy. Can't get dark. Believe. If everyone doesn't believe we can be happy, that happiness will get away. Everyone has to believe. I
like the sound of that. I'll believe too. I'll believe we can find happiness.
Oh, Kiria, thank you. Battler and Jessica, you believe too. Beatrice is also always saying that magic won't have any power if you don't believe.
Kirie-san rose from her seat quietly, went over to Maria, and crouched down so that their eyes met.
Aunt Kiria believed. Now, Battler and Jessica have to believe.
Those two are strong. They'll feel better soon, and then they'll believe.
Yeah.
More importantly, I want you to tell me something. When Kirie-san said that, Jessica, George Aniki, Dr. Nanjo, and I all listened closely. It looked like our parents were so concerned with the inheritance problem that grandfather filled their minds, but we wanted to ask Maria about something simpler.
What?
Who gave you that letter?
Beatrice.
The witch drawn in that portrait?
She gave me this letter and an umbrella. And she used magic to fix my rose that was broken. Beatrice is an awesome witch who can do anything.
Could you tell us about that in a bit more detail? So yeah, at this point we have a pretty good idea of how that conversation goes. It's the same every time. They keep asking her who it is, and Maria keeps saying Beatrice. Without even being allowed to wait for dessert, we were chased out of the room. I heard that, in the end, our parents were unable to get grandfather to respond. Oh, I hate to say it, but I feel like giving grandfather a high five right now. He was probably pretty satisfied with how his strange letter had given his children a good shock, since they had all been so infatuated with the inheritance problem while grandfather was still alive. I also felt like our despicable parents had gotten what they deserved in all of this confusion. But I couldn't really say that I was feeling great. I felt all sulky. Apparently, grandfather hadn't seemed concerned with the whole thing, but he also hadn't denied anything about the letter either. When talking about the witch's letter, grandfather's name kept popping up. If grandfather knew that someone was stealing his name, then considering his character, he'd probably be mad with rage. But even though grandfather now knew the contents of that letter, he coldly ignored it. So did that count as a silent yes? Aunt Ava and Dad were trying to interpret the letter in their favor, their greed clearly visible. It wouldn't have mattered so much if that was all, but the adults had now started focusing on Maria, who had received the letter. They kept pounding her with questions about who had given it to her. Maria repeated over and over again that she had gotten it from Beatrice, but there was no way such a mysterious person could have sneaked onto the island. After all, this island is small, and there's no one living on it outside the Ushiramiya family household. Maria kept repeating that she'd gotten it from Beatrice, no matter how many times she was asked. The adults seemed to think she was trying to trick them, so they didn't hold back and questioned her until she broke out in tears. When Maria was released, she sobbed, all worn out from crying. After our parents ordered us to go to the guest house and take Maria with us, they shut themselves up in the dining hall and started getting louder and louder as they discussed the inheritance. It seemed that, because of that strange letter, Uncle Krause's chances of becoming the next head might have been reduced to a blank slate. And in exchange for accepting him, my dad and the rest were trying to swindle Uncle Krause out of a lot of money, or something like that. Disgusted as we were, Jessica and I were happy to move over to the guest house. We didn't want to be under the same roof as those filthy adults, their heads so filled with thoughts about money. George Aniki pleaded on our parents' behalf, saying that he wanted us to understand them. I understood his reasoning. No matter how filthy this talk of money was, it wouldn't go away if you just close your eyes to it. But even so, how could they sink so low as to overtly fight over the money of the dead? Maria had cried herself dry and was hiding in her bed. She hadn't even twitched for a while, so she was probably sleeping. Who in the world gave that letter to Maria-chan? George Nissan, you can't ask her that anymore. Isn't it fine to say that Maria got it from Beatrice and leave it at that? After all, we don't want to make her cry any more than this. Even though we said that, we couldn't clear away a gloomy feeling. There are only 18 people on this island now. The thought that somewhere in the rain a 19th person gave Maria-chan that letter and is now hiding somewhere doesn't seem realistic at all. Most likely, somebody got Shannon or someone to put on the dress from that portrait and cleverly got Maria to go along with their story. Though, in Maria's case, just seeing the dress would probably convince her that it really was Beatrice. Maybe it doesn't really matter who handed her the letter. The important thing is who sent it. The point is that grandfather wanted to cause an uproar by assuming the name of the witch. Seriously, that old geezer's good at riling people up. The most likely answer is that our occult-loving grandfather was playing around, handing the letter over to Maria, who shares the same hobby as he does in such a dramatic way. Though he failed to give any thought for what Maria would have to go through, making it a pretty shitty thing to do. Seriously, messing around with Maria's pure heart. It doesn't matter who handed the letter over. Maria says she got it from Beatrice, so let's treat it that way. I agree. Let's do that. To Maria-chan, Beatrice is kind of like what Santa Claus is to most kids. Whether we're dealing with some non-existent 19th person or Santa Claus, as long as we all acknowledge them, they'll at least exist inside Maria. I see. Guess it can be important to lie to a child to protect their dreams. What's up, Jessica? Are you still angry? Jessica had her hand on her chin, as though there was something that she just couldn't understand. When I called out to her, she came to her senses. Sorry. Well, actually, I was wondering if Maria might have actually met Beatrice. What do you mean by that? Are you saying there's a 19th person on this island? If you truly take Maria-chan's words to heart, then you would arrive at that answer. No, that's not what I mean. I'm talking about the story that someone we don't know has been living on this island since long ago. Living, you say? Where? In the forest. The adults were gathered in the dining hall, spending a very long time continuing the discussion that had been started by Beatrice's letter. Krause strongly claimed that the letter was a simple prank, but he couldn't overturn the claim that Kinzo's failure to deny the letter was answer enough. Judging by Kinzo's character, if he knew that a letter had been written in his name, he would be mad with rage. Since all of the siblings knew that, Krause had no choice but to withdraw his claim. Without even having to summarize it, the contents of the letter were simple. The person who could solve the witch's epitaph would receive the headship and assets. This did a lot of damage to Krause, who had been sure that he would receive the headship, and was better news than the rest of them who had already given up could have hoped for. However, there were some points that worried them. The person who solved the epitaph was not limited to a member of the Ushinomiya family. Taken literally, anyone, no matter how doubtful their origin, might receive the headship. And furthermore, this meant there was a chance that all of the Ushinomiya family's assets would be stolen by some unknown person. In that sense, it was definitely not a situation where even the other siblings could afford to lower their guard. Had this letter come from an assassin sent by Kinzo, calling themselves Beatrice? Or was this the scheme of some unknown person trying to steal the Ushinomiya family's wealth? They still didn't know the truth, but they could say one thing for certain. Maria had received this problematic letter today on this island. In other words, someone planning something to do with that letter was on this island today. Had it been set up by Kinzo, one of the 4 siblings, or maybe some unknown person? No matter how much they suspected each other, they couldn't reach a conclusion. After getting tired of bickering with each other, they finally reached the extremely obvious conclusion that doubting each other was just a waste of time. We've made no progress. We've just been spinning our wheels. That's right. And the mere fact that you've realized it means we won't have to waste any more time. It is not certain that Father sent the letter. My husband is merely exasperated by your inability to hold a conversation. Who's unable to hold a conversation? You keep yelling at me every time I say something. Do you truly think that such shameful behavior is fitting for a member of the Ushinomiya family? Would you give it a rest, Ava? You too, Natsuhi-san. That topic's finished for now. Shall we all cool our heads off for now? Let's have some cool drinks brought over. That sounds good. It would probably be wiser if we cooled our heads. Don't you want to take a short break too, dear? Aniki looks like she's in a bad mood, so I'll pass on that break. But I agree about the cool drinks. Rosa, have someone bring some water. A whole pitcher.
Yes, understood.
Rosa headed over to the extension telephone in a corner of the room and called the servant room. She then passed on what Rodolfo told her to the person on the other end. The vicious bickering up until now vanished as though it had been a lie. That silence continued until Goda finished setting the table and retreated from the room. Is there anything else that you require?
No. Please leave us.
Yes. Then if you will excuse me. If you need anything, call me at any time. After listening to the sound of Goda's footsteps disappear off into the distance, everyone took a deep breath at the same time to break the tension. It sure is raining hard. I wonder if this 19th person is taking shelter in the Rose Garden Arbor about now. I wonder. They might be able to escape the rain there, but it would be quite cold. Mysterious 19th person as a visitor. Sounds pretty interesting, just like a mystery novel. Normally in that kind of story, it's a safe bet that the person doesn't exist, that one of us 18 would be faking it. I suspect Genji and the others. Just as I thought, it would have been better if we had dismissed all of the servants of the One-Winged Eagle, no matter what excuses we had to make. Come now, don't say that. We must be grateful for the long years of service. Of course, we can't let our guard down. I'm sure you agree too, Nissan, that whether or not Father was behind this, the person who handed Maria the letter was a servant. Indeed. In any event, we were all being friendly in our big happy circle until dinner, weren't we? All of the siblings have alibis. Only a servant could have handed Maria that letter.
But all of the servants said that they were too busy with the bed making to have any spare time, during which they could go to Maria-chan in the Rose Garden.
Hey, what are you trying to say then? You aren't saying that the Witch of the Forest, Beatrice-sama, came over and actually handed Maria that letter, are you?
Rosa, you used to believe in that so much, it really frightened you, right? Don't tell me you still believe at this age in the Witch of the Forest.
Hey Lulu, welcome. I had some technical problems at the beginning, so you're not super late. And not a lot happened. I can do a quick recap because it's really quick. The adults argued over the inheritance and the letter that Maria got from Beatrice. The kids heard the arguing because they were all in the same room. The kids are very upset by this and disgusted by their parents' greed. And I believe that, yeah, they suspect that there's a 19th person on the island, and Jessica just said that she thinks that maybe the 19th person has been living on the island all along. And we have received no clarification on that yet, but that was kind of like the big uh-oh moment. And that's kind of the only thing you missed, so I hope you had a good nap. Welcome.
If she did exist, I'd love for her to appear. But no matter how much I wished, she didn't appear before me even once.
Oh, and one thing I did forget, also in the recap in the beginning, Ava has, like I said, girl's problems. She keeps hearing her younger self from back when she lived on the island. And that's, you know, when the screen kind of goes gray and there's some dialogue, that's her younger self talking to her.
She didn't save me from my crisis. Of course not. I just thought that since all 18 of us said that we didn't do it, there might really be a 19th person.
That can't be. In the first place, we were the only ones who came in on that boat. We didn't see any mysterious stranger riding with us. You don't think they could have swam across this rough sea, right? I can't really imagine it.
Logically, that's true. It is difficult to imagine that there's a single hidden and uninvited guest on this isolated island. However, it looks like some of us still can't abandon the possibility completely, right?
Hideyoshi had laughed it off, saying there couldn't be a 19th person. But Kirie had sensitively picked up on the delicate atmosphere among the four siblings. In a normal situation, there shouldn't have been any uninvited guests on this small, isolated island. How would they have come here, and from where? And where were they hiding? And why hadn't they appeared openly even though they had sent a letter in their name? Nothing could explain that. But not only had the four siblings not joined in on Hideyoshi's laughing, they also seemed unable to completely deny in their hearts the possibility of a 19th person. Kiria-san, please don't misunderstand. It's not as though we believe in anything like that fairy tale-like legend of the witch.
Is this another topic to insult father? Simply speaking of such a thing as a betrayal against him.
I wonder. However, this is father we're talking about. It could be possible, right?
I don't know anything.
What's this? What's this? Why has everyone gotten so gloomy? What are you talking about? In short, the legend of the witch isn't a joke, but a fact? That's ridiculous. Of course, nobody believes in some witch riding a broom and flying in the sky. But the woman in that portrait, Beatrice, might really have existed on this island.
Hideyoshi-san, it looks like we aren't talking about a witch, but something a little simpler. So it must be something like this. Everyone suspects that father had a mistress named Beatrice secretly living somewhere on this island. Is that it? Father was always exemplary at keeping strictly to the rules. It is completely inconceivable that he would bring something so filthy onto this island. Natsuki snapped at them immediately, but it looked like the four siblings, including Kraus, didn't agree. On the contrary, they appeared to think Kinzo wouldn't even have hesitated to do something like that. From the beginning, it had been whispered that Kinzo had built a mansion on this island specifically because of the existence of an entrancing mistress. I'm sorry, Natsuki-san. I know how much you respect Dad, but that rumor's been around for a long time. All the buildings on Rokkenjima were built by Dad on his own. People have always guessed that he had some contraption or secret room set up in this mansion that only he knew about. And it's always been whispered that hidden somewhere on this island, there's a secret mansion none of us know about. I see. This island might look small on a map, but it's quite large for just the Ushigumi family to live on. So people have suspected that he built a secret mansion somewhere in the uncivilized forest for his mistress to live in? And that would be quite a large-scale scheme. In the beginning, people thought it might be somewhere inside this mansion, that there might be a hidden basement with a fabulous hidden room where the witch in that portrait was secretly hiding. After seeing that intricate auto lock on Dad's study, it isn't too hard to imagine, right? After all, Father did spread the rumor that a large amount of gold was hidden somewhere by some mechanism. I wouldn't be surprised if there existed some hidden room inside this very mansion that none of us know about yet. When Mother was alive, she would often scour the entire mansion searching for Father when he wasn't anywhere to be found. Mother also suspected what Will just said. She believed there was a hidden door, stairway somewhere, and that his blonde-haired mistress was hidden behind it. It's hard to believe, but there are some actual examples in other countries of people cheating with someone over a period of several decades by making them live in a hidden attic room. Furthermore, Kinzo had a mansion this extravagant. It was possible to suspect the existence of a hidden room. Damn. Guy took it really far, huh? From what I've heard, the legend of the Rokkenjima witch was just a fairy tale made up to scare children away from the uncivilized forest. But it's starting to sound like there's a little more to the story. Well, as you know, this is a lonely island without anything but the Ushinomiya mansion on it. When Rosa and I were little brats, on stormy nights, we got so scared by the sound of trees rustling in the direction of the forest. We had this crazy delusion that something weird might be looking out at us from between those trees. It's only natural for a brat to think of stuff like that. But when Rosa and I complained about it, some people figured it was more than a brat's imagination. Isn't that right, Aniki? Yeah. Nissan and I thought you might have coincidentally spotted Father's mistress, living in secrecy on this island, as she went out for a walk when no one was looking. Of course, Mother felt the same.
Even among the older servants, you often heard that ghost story about how the witch of the portrait wanders the mansion at midnight. Outwardly, I'd laughed it off as just a ghost story, but on the inside, I suspected very much that it hinted at the existence of a hidden mistress. In that case, you're saying that the existence of a 19th person might not be completely ridiculous? That they might actually be somewhere around here?
Sounds like one of those devil's proofs Rudolph's always talk. Blech.
I'm just gonna start over on that one.
Sounds like one of those devil's proofs Rudolph's always talking about. It might be possible to prove that there's a 19th person, but it's impossible to prove that a 19th person doesn't exist. Should we continue this discussion under the assumption that there's a person named Beatrice hiding somewhere on this island?
That's a good plan from the perspective of risk management. It's probably much more prudent to say she might exist, rather than saying she couldn't exist.
I see.
Sorry, I was a bit careless. Rosa-san, sorry for laughing just now.
It's fine, I don't mind.
Hideyoshi apologized deeply for taking the worst-case scenario lightly, despite calling himself the president of a company. Silence fell again. Preparing for the existence of a 19th person would mean, in effect, acknowledging the presence of some unknown person hidden on this island. And since this person might be planning something shady, it was only natural that the conversation would turn in an ominous direction. In the past, Father would sometimes suddenly disappear without telling anyone where he went. After all, he is a man who values silence. It wouldn't have been out of the ordinary for him to shut himself up in some library room after purposefully not telling anyone where he was going. However, when the witch theory was slowly refined into the theory about his mistress, people eventually whispered that he was secretly going back and forth to see her. Mom was totally paranoid in her last years. She'd sometimes suddenly start making a fuss, asking the servants to start looking for Dad immediately because of some urgent situation.
Yes, that did happen sometimes. Mother was always doing things like that in her later years, and that frightening atmosphere still hasn't gone away. I can say it for certain now. She was a person to be pitied.
So then, what happened with those large-scale searches of the house? Did they find anything?
No. Father wasn't caught foolishly in a hidden room even once. Always, after a long time had passed, he would suddenly show up somewhere. Then he'd say that he'd taken a nap in some library room, or that the wind had summoned him to take a walk on the beach. But it was always some place where the servants had already looked. We never knew where Father had gone. Even at that time, Grandfather was famous for his occult inclinations. So some of the servants exaggerated, saying that he might have turned into butterflies and danced around in the rose garden. Did she just call her own father grandfather? That really threw me off. So in short, Father frequently disappeared and no one knew where he went.
Yeah. Since we couldn't find him no matter how much we looked inside the mansion, we got more and more sure that Dad might have been somewhere outside. But the area outside the mansion isn't large at all, which leaves only the forest. And if you tie that in with the legend of the witch, you get a theory like this. Father actually built a hidden mansion somewhere in the forest, inside of which a mistress by the name of Beatrice lived, and he sometimes went to see her. Yeah, it was a little confusing. I was also young at the time, so I was so eager to find where Father was having his affair that, at one time, I followed him when he went outside. Of course, it was a failure. Every time Father went out, he was oddly intent on avoiding places where he might be seen, and was extremely careful to prevent anyone from spotting him. and he was extraordinarily earnest in his attempts to do so. That actually made me sure. He must have been going out for some reason that the members of his family couldn't know about. And that would be going to meet his mistress. Probably trying to avoid being seen. After seeing Hideyoshi nod and say yes, as though this was quite obvious, Eva got a little subtle. Well, anyway, this island was like a sketchbook in which Father, this Western obsession, could draw out all of his dreams. Everything about this island was exactly how Father wanted it. It wouldn't be odd at all if there was a hidden mansion somewhere for his mistress to live in. Ava's words spoke for what all the siblings had come to think. For a while, the room returned to silence again, and everyone listened to the sound of the wind and rain. Was there a hidden mansion on this island? And had Kinzo's mistress been living here, in hiding for a long, long time? Everyone thought they were being too suspicious, and they hesitated for a long time without speaking. But everyone shared a common opinion. Kiria, who had been listening the whole time with her eyes closed, spoke to no one in particular. How long has this rumor about Father's mistress been around? As soon as we moved to this island, about 30 years ago. After all, it probably would have been impossible for him to have a hidden mansion built while we were here. People and materials would have to be going in and out. It would have been exposed quickly. So if it was possible, it happened before he moved here. It probably could have been built along with this mansion when we were still living in Odawara. Since Father had to set up a double life with his family and his mistress, it's probably reasonable to assume that he had it all planned from the beginning. And his relationship with that mistress probably went back to the days when we lived in Odawara. Probably. If, as Father says, she is the source of the vast amount of gold he used to gain the funds that resurrected the Ushimiya family, we could probably conclude that they had a close relationship since Odawara. A relationship trusting enough for her to lend him a vast quantity of gold. I can't even imagine how old that relationship must have been. Perhaps Father gave her some kind of valuable advice for succeeding in business. It's natural to think that out of a sense of gratitude for that, this person gave Father the gold. If you think about it that way, it's obvious that they would have a close relationship after that. Rather than a festering relationship with a mistress, it was probably a relationship of gratitude to the person who saved the Ushimiya family from its crisis. I don't know if what Natsuhi-san's saying has a ring of truth to it or not, but even in that case, isn't building a hidden mansion and having her live there in it going a bit too far? Doesn't that mean they felt something a bit more than gratitude? Well, this is all just speculation. In the first place, no one's ever found that hidden mansion. Aniki, you were planning on expanding this island into a resort, right? It's very hard to talk today, apparently. As you were doing that, you didn't manage to stumble on it by chance, did you? Maybe you even bumped into some gold there, too. Do you think Rokujima is Treasure Island or something? Don't play dumb. We know that although you say you're opening a resort, you have really been planning to investigate the entire island, right? Judging by all that trouble and confusion we were talking about earlier, you haven't been very successful, have you? Yeah, you're right, talking is hard. Well, okay, I'm good talk. I don't know what you're talking about, but it's a misunderstanding. Isn't it perfectly natural that investigating this island would be the first step in turning it into a resort? Kraus tried to play dumb, but it was plainly obvious to his siblings who knew him so well. Kraus was definitely sure of the existence of a hidden mansion. And under the pretense of opening a resort, he had been closely investigating the island, searching for a clue as to the location of the hidden gold. They couldn't tell whether that conviction was just him overthinking things or whether it was based on some physical proof. Still, if Kraus with all its guile was sure, that was enough proof for the other siblings to be sure too. The story about a witch living in the forest is obviously a fairy tale, but the story about some blonde-haired girl living secretly in a mansion no one knows about in the middle of a forest isn't much better. That's right. That really would be just like a fairy tale. You like those, though, don't you, Rosa? Well... When the mansion was built on this island, Father was at the height of his prosperity. With this money, he could probably obtain anything, making any of his wild imaginings real. A mansion in the forest where a witch quietly waits. It sounds like the kind of situation Father would like. Doesn't it? Like something from the occult or a fairy tale. It feels like Dad's kind of hobby. On this island, on which the Ushiromiya family had lived for 30 years now, a hidden mansion that no one knew about had been quietly built to house a witch, about whom nothing was known except what could be guessed from a portrait. Even this hastily thrown together theory might not be completely delusional, considering all of Kinzo's strange habits and his vast wealth. It might not have been impossible for Father to build a hidden mansion to satisfy his dreams. However, let's be realistic. Would it be possible to house his beloved woman in that hidden mansion for decades without it becoming an inconvenient? Well, if there was love, it could have been doable, right? Think of the facilities needed to let his beloved woman live healthily. And in a way that would satisfy Father. For example, even if it was on a small scale, it would have to be an intricate and pleasant residence. And it would probably need to have electricity, gas, and running water maintained, as well as some people to see to her needs. Even cooking would be quite difficult. She would need clothes and makeup, the daily necessities. The needs of a woman aren't simple. Would it be possible to maintain all of that without any of the family or the servants noticing? When you say it that way, it sure sounds like a weak point in our theory. But that isn't enough to get rid of my feeling that Dad might have been able to do it anyway. After all, it's Dad we're talking about. That's right. It's our father. If Father wanted to succeed in an endeavor, he would succeed no matter what. Saying that something would be difficult for a normal person and therefore impossible doesn't apply when it comes to Father. Indeed. You should never underestimate Father. Father's madness can't be understood by normal people. I wouldn't put it past that, Kinzo. As long as you stick to this phrase, a considerable amount of credibility can dwell in any absurd story. However, that didn't cause the importance of what Kitty had said to waver. This was different from stealthily raising a kitten in a cardboard box and keeping it a secret from your parents. Taking care of a person in secret over a period of 30 years would be an incalculably massive task. After all, Father's legend of the golds started before he gained possession of Rokanjima. That'd mean his relationship with his mistress was over 30 years long. How old would that make her? In the worst case, she could be as old as us or older, right? By that age, the body starts to break down. I don't care what the mansion's like, I wouldn't use the word agreeable to describe living in a place where people's eyes can't reach, almost like she was under house arrest. That's right. If what Father told us about Beatrice is true, then that relationship has lasted for over 30 years. She might have been a charming young woman at the time, but it probably makes sense to assume she's an old bag like us now. I can easily imagine that, given the contents of that letter. You should talk. Kraus laughed as if none of this applied to him. Of course, Ava was offended, but she didn't strike back. Quit it, Aniki. So if everything we're thinking is true, then she should be joining in on Dad's inheritance problem with her head held high. After all, there's a good chance their love was mutual, unlike with Mom. Even if she knows she's his mistress, she might also be proud to be his true wife. Old like us when they look younger than you? Yeah, it's anime. All the women look like they're 20, and the men have different ages. Like in real life. That's an insult to Mother. Yeah, sorry. Oh, Rudolph. However, everyone knows that it was a political marriage decided on by the elders among his relatives. Because of that, it definitely wouldn't be strange for Dad to have a mistress. The family sank after the Great Kanto earthquake. Father was set up as the Ushinomiya family head against his will. However, in the beginning, the elder relatives treated Kinzo like a dummy and influenced him powerfully, almost like he was a puppet. He wasn't permitted to decide anything by himself, not even his marriage partner. Ever since he met that golden witch Beatrice in those distant days, Kinzo's legend of the gold was quickly embellished into something dramatic. In other words, it could mean that Kinzo really did find a woman he loved. If she also knew the whole story, even if they weren't marriage partners, it wouldn't have been odd for her to consider herself his true wife inside her heart. And now, the person registered as his true wife was already dead. Which means she might feel confident staking her claim, not just for the rights to his assets, but regarding the battle over the headship too. I see. I'm starting to see the purpose of this letter. The headship goes to the one who solves the riddle of the epitaph. Is that what it means? Even if that mistress was added into the family ranking system, she isn't a direct relative of Father, so she'd be inferior even to the children. In other words, she'd be one step below Rosa in rank. That wouldn't be a good position to enter the battle for the headship from. I see. So that's it. If someone can solve the witch's riddle, they'll get the headship regardless of rank. In other words, it's the most advantageous condition Beatrice could possibly get, since she's got no chance otherwise. The revival of the Ushinomiya family was made possible by the gold Beatrice had bestowed. That was quite a distinguishing service she had provided. She had built that wealth together with Kinzo, so it was natural that she would think of herself as the one who should inherit it. It would also be natural for her to despise the thought of giving it up to the children of the wife Kinzo never loved. How could she be so impudent? Even if such a mistress actually exists, joining in on the battle for the rights to the head's inheritance would be a reckless action far above her place. What disregard for her own position! Natsuhi turned red, her fist quivering. She had also come into the Ushinomiya register due to complicated circumstances. Those who knew that understood more or less why she was so angry for the sake of Kinzo's dead wife. Well, thanks to that reckless action of hers, we all have an even chance now, right? Father has even given it his silent approval. Will the person who succeeds the Ushinomiya family be his mistress Beatrice, or one of us, the relatives he doesn't love? Maybe he wants to make a struggle over that to see who's worthy. As Ava giggled roguishly, Kraus shrugged his shoulders and looked away. I got a quick sip of water. However, since she is the one who brought this rule to light in the first place, maybe that means it gives her a significant advantage. That's right. In the first place, if Beatrice meant that letter literally, then she's father's alchemist. In other words, she's the manager of his gold. It wouldn't be strange at all if she knew where it was hidden, would it? Isn't that harsh? It's like she's giving us a riddle she knows the answer to. She'll probably show up rudely, say, "Hey, here's the answer, I'll take the headship now," and snatch everything away from us. That's right. The person who brings up a riddle always knows the answer. There's a good chance that this is all a trap to steal everything from us. If you really think about it like that, don't you start to doubt whether she really had any gold in the first place? Why would she tell us about it? All she has to do is keep quiet and embezzle it. It really is strange. That certainly was the case. If the epitaphs showed the way to the hidden gold, why would she challenge them to try and solve it? If they actually did solve it, would the gold all be stolen from her? Could it be that this person was trying to stir the siblings up so they'd solve the epitaph, and then plan to steal it away at the last second? It was an extremely logical possibility. No, if you spin the chessboard around, there might be a pretty good chance that they actually do have the gold. Why are you so certain? Wait, Aniki. Kiria, please keep talking. Why do you think that? After all, do they really think we'll let go of the Ushinomi family headship just because someone tells us the answer to the riddle in the witch's epitaph? That we'll be so impressed by their answer that we'll just give up? Well, that's true. No way they're so naive that they assumed we'd just give up after being told the answer to a riddle. That we just say, "Here you go," and hand it over. Of course. The headship of the Ushinomi family is not something that can be handed over so easily. That's it exactly. No matter how Beatrice might one-sidedly propose a game like this, even if she were to spectacularly show us the answer, there's no way we'd immediately hand over the headship. In other words, unless she has a compelling force in the form of challenging us to a game with equal conditions for us all, this won't truly count as a game. You're right. Unless the losers have no choice but to give up on the headship, because of a compelling force, this won't really count as a game. And what might this compelling force be? Will they bind us in chains and threaten us into handing over the headship? Kraus, you idiot. It's so obvious, and he's like, what is it? Sorry, that was really mean, but come on. I see. I get it. They just have to do something to make us want to give up the headship willingly. Yes, I see. To do that, Beatrice would have to own 10 tons of gold. They do deserve it, you're right. I see, I get it too. In other words, it's a trade? Huh? What do you mean? A trade? Trade what? The Ushinomi family headship for the hidden gold. Beatrice surely plans to tell us the location of the 10 tons of gold and use that as a bribe to gain the Ushinomi family headship. Ridiculous. They want to trade the headship of the glorious Ushinomi family for money. That's blasphemy. Blasphemy against the Ushinomi family. Please listen without getting mad. About how much wealth does this glorious Ushinomi family have right now? Are we really that affluent? The definition of affluence is not dependent on property. It is about heart. Our financial situation has nothing to... Grouse interrupted Natsuhi as she started to go on and on emotionally. In this situation, the more she went on like that, the worse it would actually sound. Me aside, I hear your current situations are quite unfavorable. Oh, really? I've heard that your financial situation's really bad too. Offering up more and more as collateral for new money to gamble with. Repeatedly dabbling in new gambles, unable to accept your losses. If we count what's going on behind the scenes, you're in even bigger financial straits than the rest of us. Just how much money have you lost, Nissan? You have no talent. Who are you saying has no talent? And what do you mean, financial straits? Natsuhi became indignant once more, but Kraus raised his hand again and interrupted her. It seems you are making a small mistake. Business is not something that can be judged based on current progress alone. For someone with a long-term outlook on business such as myself, it may sometimes appear at a glance that I've suffered significant short-term losses. Aniki, we've been collecting evidence. Your position right now isn't one to be proud of. So, this is what Kitty is trying to say. Every one of us has got money trouble, and Beatrice has 10 tons of gold. Yes, Natsuhi's Kraus's wife. As the only person who knows the location of the 10 tons of gold, Beatrice is planning on using it to force us to sell the headship. About how much is 10 tons of gold worth? At a rough estimate, let's say 2 billion yen? No, 20 billion yen. With that much piled up, we'd be ecstatic to accept her as the successor. That's a lot of money. The scene returned to silence. In fact, the rain and wind felt even noisier now. It was probably the sound of the windstorm racing through the insides of their minds. This isn't funny. To think we'd give up the headship to some woman of doubtful origin, just because she had a little money stored up. Don't be stupid. The headship wasn't even yours in the first place, right? We've got nothing to lose and money to gain. We'll have to calculate our profit and loss, but it's something worth listening to. They knew that Kraus had eaten up much of the Ushinomiya family's assets. So, it was dregs that remained of that inheritance, versus the cost of being accepted as the head that Beatrice would pay. It was a shame, but honestly, the former was less enticing than the latter. Well, it probably wouldn't end up as 4 equal portions. Since Aniki would be giving up his position of successor, his portion would have to be larger. Makes me feel kinda jealous, you know. Dear, the amount of money isn't the problem, right? Your cowardly younger siblings are trying to sell the glory of the Ushinomiya family for money, don't you see? Why aren't you displaying your dignity as the oldest son? Natsuhi, stay quiet for a while. Dear. This is a dizzying proposal. We were each planning on getting 250 million yen out of Aniki. The witch treats us with 10% of those 10 tons. That's 2 billion. Yeah. That'd mean she's treating us with 10 times our original goal. That alone would be more than enough for us. It's not like I've got any attachment to the Ushinomiya name. I'd be happy to sell it off. Even if 10 tons is a slightly optimistic figure, yes, it'd still be a fascinating prospect for us. We were trying to form an alliance among the siblings to kick this outsider called Beatrice out. But if this is her plan, it'll tear apart the unity between us. Yeah, by this point we can state it clearly. The goal of Beatrice's letter was to disturb our alliance. If the 3 younger siblings, who never had anything to do with the inheritance, were paid enough money to satisfy them, they would happily accept Beatrice as the next head. A moat had been dug all around Kraus. In that case, the negotiations would be one-on-one between her and Kraus. He tried to look strong, but Krause's financial and political situation was extremely weak. He might bluff in front of his siblings, but on the inside, he was considering entering negotiations, depending on the sum of money involved. In order to bury his losses, Krause had taken advantage of the fact that Kinzo had shut himself up in his room, and had embezzled Kinzo's personal assets. Therefore, when Kinzo died and the inheritance was distributed, Krause's situation would probably be investigated. And don't worry about not commenting much. I'm just glad you're here. And that goes for everyone who is watching. But if he gave up his seat as the head to Beatrice, she would also receive rights to the assets, and as a result, the distribution of the inheritance to the siblings would not occur. In other words, Krause's embezzlement might not have to be made known to the other siblings. Of course, the siblings were frightened of Kinzo, but it was doubtful whether they still actually respected him as a father. By this time, they each had their own families, their own wealth, and their own lives. If they were paid enough money in exchange for Rokujima, the wreckage of Kinzo's dreams, there was a significant likelihood that they'd relinquish the Ushiromiya family name. In other words, Beatrice's victory was already guaranteed in this game, not as the winner of Beatrice's game, but as the winner of Kinzo's game. Kinzo once ordered that the epitaph be put on display, and until today, no one had solved it. So Beatrice solved it. In other words, this is less of a game and more like Beatrice's declaration of victory. However, Kiria still thought there might be a catch. If this was a declaration of victory, Beatrice would only have had to display the gold openly and state her intent to buy the inheritance. And yet, she had gone to all of this trouble, telling the siblings to try and solve the epitaph. Why did she set up this new game where she agreed to hand over all of the gold and the inheritance to the epitaph solver? Kiria tried spinning the chessboard around several times. She searched for the sort of ideal strategy Beatrice might be after, something that could lead to this kind of thinking. In the end, she reached a single conclusion. Could it be arrogance? Or maybe she's playing? What are you talking about? The witch sent us a letter of challenge, forcing us to try and solve the epitaph. She might be taking us lightly, thinking we could never solve it. However, at the very least, there ought to be an extremely small chance that we do solve it. After all, we have here 4 father's children by blood, right? The questioner called together 4 blood relatives who, if they tried frantically to work together and avoid having those assets stolen from them, might come across the answer of the riddle by chance. The reason the witch had a superior position in negotiations compared to the siblings was that only she knew the location of the hidden gold. But if that hiding place was exposed to someone other than her, the witch's advantage would crumble. In short, Beatrice gains nothing but risk by writing this witch's letter of challenge. Of course, it might have had the effect of splitting apart the siblings' alliance, but if that was her only goal, why would she take this risk, however slight it might be? That seems reckless to me. But if we keep in mind a certain type of emotion, that risk becomes comprehensible. And you're saying it's arrogance? Yes, that's right. When people have an overwhelming advantage, they tend to get arrogant. And when they do, they want to show off that advantage to the losers, so they sometimes take on small risks. A moderate amount of risks adds a little spice to the joy of victory. It'd be boring to win without any risk. I understand. I like that kind of thing too. Yeah, I understand it well. I thought of a few plausible explanations for the true motive behind Beatrice's letter. But I think this might really be the truth. The emotion hidden behind that letter was arrogance. Arrogance. She's trying to throw her weight around, looking down on us, as if there's no way we could figure out such a difficult epitaph. I'm with you, Lulu. I love her. She's my favorite. She's trying to throw her weight around, looking down at us, as if there's no way we could figure out such a difficult epitaph. It might even be possible if surprising, that the epitaph wasn't written by Father, but by her. It sounds great. Solve the riddle of the epitaph, she says. If only I solved it, I would be made the head, right? I'll solve it. I'll accept the witch's challenge. As if those other idiot siblings could solve it. I'll solve it by myself, and then I'll prove that I'm the one who's fit to succeed the Ushinomiya family. I'll take that challenge. I will solve the riddle. I see. So, she's not a witch, but a mistress named Beatrice who lived on the island. So there can be more than 18 people. Which means I can defeat the line of reasoning that says any crime possible for all 18 people must involve magic. That's a big scoop. Add the boys back. And this boy's back too. Pardon me. Butler-sama, would you like some black tea and cookies? Beato's butler, who called himself Ronove, appeared out of nowhere. Oh, I could feel the caps. A plate set on a silver tray that he held was filled with delicious-looking steaming black tea and cookies. I really don't like this guy's smile. That's Battler talking, not Sam talking. For some reason, it doesn't look like a smile used to warmly greet a guest. It feels like he's mocking me somehow. I don't know if he really takes me for an idiot, or if it's just a joke or something, but it's really irritating me. I don't need any. I'm busy now. Leave me alone. Oh my. Such a shame. And the cookies were so delicious too. Cooked so wonderfully they would be wasted on a mere human. I'll eat some when I feel like it. Just set it down somewhere and get out of here. Will that be acceptable? Then I shall do so. You may eat them when they get cold and stale, and then regret to the fullest that you did not eat them while they were fresh. You really are annoying. Well, you're a lot better than that Beato who keeps doing that creepy cackle right next to my ear. Yes, that is quite true. There are times when Milady's laughter becomes quite undignified. Every time I hear it, I find it painful to comprehend why such a noble demon as myself must serve such a master. God, his laugh is hard to do. I gotta practice. Man, you're weird. If you don't like it, then couldn't you just not work for her? And yet, to continue serving is furniture's joy. If we do not serve, we would hardly be furniture. Setting that aside, how has the game been proceeding? Just now, you seem to have found some useful information that quite pleased you. Well now, I wonder what your shallow wit has conjured up. As Ronove mocked me and giggled, he followed my earlier words literally and placed the black tea and cookies in a random spot nearby. In any case, it appears you are now more confident in the existence of a 19th person, yes? Would you be gracious enough to allow me to hear your opinion? Yeah, sure. I'm just going to say it again in front of Beato anyway. No reason to hide it. Basically, it looks like there's a hidden mansion somewhere on this island and that grandfather had his mistress living there. So the question that's been torturing me about whether there are 18 or 19 people can be easily resolved. You have driven yourself into a corner because of the dead end that you yourself have created. Even though you deny the witch, Battler-sama, you hold a double standard, and refuse to accept that the culprit is one of the 18. The easiest way to deny the witch would be to suspect one of the 18. It isn't easy to gather alibis for every one of them. You always find at least one person with a fragile alibi. I could probably continue to deny the witch forever if I just used that person as a scapegoat. However, I refuse to do that. It's useless, it's all useless. Every one of those 18 people is either a parent, a relative, or a cousin to me. And those reliable servants, who are sometimes serious and sometimes fun to be with, I won't let myself use any of them as a scapegoat. In the past, my resolve wavered. That's how Beato hit me where my heart was weak. Accepting and understanding one's own weakness. It is not something that can often be accomplished. Battler-sama, you use this theory about a 19th person as a spear, or should I say, a shield. In any event, in contrast to how unprepared you were in the previous games, the fact that you now have a compass bearing on how to fight is a dramatic leap forward, let us say. With this, you can suspect a 19th person and pursue your theory that the culprit is a human, without having to doubt any of the 18 you love and respect. That's it exactly. Like in the first game when Karon-kun was killed in the boiler room, there were plenty of tricks I could have mentioned without hesitation, as long as a 19th person existed. In the very first game, Kanon-kun was killed in the boiler room. One might think he was attacked by Kumasawa-san, who had gone down into the boiler room with him. Or maybe that someone who had appeared to be dead earlier was actually faking and had ambushed him. Either way, it was a move that forced me to suspect one of the 18. However, by simply proposing that a 19th person existed, there's no longer any need to suspect one of the 18 for that murder in the boiler room. In short, I can at least deny the line of reasoning saying that if something is impossible for every one of the 18, therefore the culprit is a witch. Using this argument, it's easy to explain, for example, the problematic case that has already occurred in this game. Who gave Maria the letter? Even if all 18 people have alibis, I could easily explain everything by saying that a 19th person must have visited her and given her the letter. I'd say that's quite a good move. Now, how would I strike back against it? You still have plenty of weak points, even if you are aware of them. Maybe the 18th person attack would be an effective move. To judge the strength of your defense, it may be amusing to contest that point again. Then how will you do it, Demon Butler? That music changed though. I believe it would be appropriate to ambush the piece representing this 19th person that you mentioned. Battler-sama. Battler-sama, you have never met this 19th person, yes? Would you please show some proof that this 19th person exists? How naive. Of course I knew you'd probably try that move. My. Please respond to it. Witches and demons and the like. There's no more fitting move for you guys to use. It's one of those devil's proofs. When you try to make some claim to humans like us, we always counterattack by telling you to show some proof. Because that's a human move. But I'm fighting a witch. I'm taking part in a battle with someone who isn't human. And some moves exist that can only be used in a game against a witch. There are cheap moves, and that's what this devil's proof is. Because it's impossible to prove. Let's assume that there's a hidden mansion on Rokujima, separate from the Ushinomiya family mansion, and that a woman named Beatrice lives there. In order to prove this, one must find this mansion and actually bring Beatrice out of it. That's called actual proof in the human world. However, if you follow the rules of the devil's proof, you can't deny that she exists, even if there's no proof that she does. Because it's impossible to prove that something doesn't exist. That's right, I'm finally able to turn the tables using this devil's proof which tormented me so much before. Those guys were always trying to force me to accept the existence of the witch with it. After all, it was physically impossible for me to show any proof that witches don't exist and deny Beato's claims. That's why I kept getting hit with the reckless argument that witches do exist and was unable to counterattack. And that's why I'll spin the chessboard around right now. If I can't disprove the existence of witches, then that means if I suggest that a 19th human exists, you can't deny that either. In other words, because this problematic and mysterious mistress is craftily hiding herself, it'd be perfectly natural if you never found her, no matter how hard you looked. So, you can't say that your inability to find this 19th person proves that she doesn't exist. Therefore, it's impossible to deny the 19th person's existence. Beato used the devil's proof to make denying her own existence impossible. But this time, it's become my weapon. If we can get away with this argument, then forget just the 19th person. This island could be full of people we don't know about. And even if there were 10 or 100 of them, she still couldn't deny that they existed. In the last game, and the one before that, among the murder scenes that showed up, there were several that were extremely intricate and must have taken a lot of effort to set up. It's really hard to imagine a single culprit setting up all of those. However, if not just a 19th person, but 10 or 100 people were hidden somewhere, that wouldn't be any problem at all. If they all split up the work, they could handle any job in a short period of time. Of course, doubts will naturally arise as to whether a large group of people like that could sneak around the mansion without being noticed. But those are all settled by the devil's proof. You can't deny that even 100 people were there just because they weren't seen or noticed. Even though I'm saying it myself, it's such a stupid argument that it makes me want to throw up. However, because it's such a dirty move, it's a perfect one to use against a witch. Well, this is just my imagination, but what if about 100 suspicious men wearing goat masks were hiding in the shadows? Something like that's worse than laughable, almost like they're cockroaches. If you see one, it means there's 100 more hiding somewhere. Well, I do think it's a ridiculous argument that's horribly twisted. If my opponent were human, I'm sure they'd yell at me like I was out of my mind. But my opponent is a witch. And after all, that's the kind of competition we're having, isn't it? I'll use any kind of reckless argument to explain it using humans and deny the witch. Anyway, with this move, I won't have to doubt any of the 18 who are close to me again. I won't suffer a defeat like last time again. I see. You've learned from your previous defeat. That is good. It's no surprise that you've become so devious now that you're in your third game. You first strengthen your own defense. That is truly a solid first step. Quite a spectacular move, I would say. Well, even if we do assume that there's a 19th person, there are still a few tricks left that I can't resolve, like the actual number of master keys, no matter how many humans I add. Still, it isn't bad as a first step for the time being. Butler-sama, your trump card is the important piece called the 19th person. You countered my move of asking where the proof was by using the devil's proof. A good skirmish. Although I must apologize for making a move by myself when Milady isn't here, I find that I too am growing slightly interested. I wonder if you'll allow me to make yet another move on Milady's behalf. Let's have it. I've got no shortage of opponents, be they witches or demons. This move you presented called the Devil's Proof. It's a specialty of us demons, but there are also various other moves available to us. Do you know of a move called Hempel's Raven? Yes, she did say that in red. There are 5 master keys. I forget the exact wording though. Hempel's Raven? What are you talking about? Just then, that enraging laugh I've heard so many times started echoing. She's back, baby. The room was filled with dazzling golden butterflies, and in the center of that whirlwind, the Golden Witch appeared. If it isn't Milady, good morning. I thought you might be doing something interesting while I was away. Hempel's Raven, was it? Such a familiar old move, I could almost laugh. To think the day has come when I get to show it off to Battler. It's a classic move to use against the Devil's Proof. Rorobe, I will make this move. Do not get in the way of my fun. So you're finally shown up, you guffawing witch. I see you're laughing like a freak just as usual. This guy was talking behind your back just now, telling me how undignified you look when you do that. Right? How rude. Is that true? Nonsense. Why would I speak such gossip about Milady, whom I regard with such sincere respect? I can't believe you'd say something so shameless. Doesn't look like we'll be getting along well together. Well, that is fine. Let us return to the point at hand. Hempel's Raven is used to show actual proof using the contrapositive. In other words, it is a move like this. What must you do to prove that ravens are black? Huh? What are you talking about? Prove that ravens are black? Wouldn't you just have to catch a raven and check to see if it's black? And that's right. You must simply prove that a raven equals black. Do you see that if you instead prove that birds that aren't... Hold on, I have to reread this. Do you see that if you instead prove that birds that aren't black equals not ravens, you would reach the same argument? If you go throughout the world and examine all birds that are not ravens, and prove that none of them are black, then as a result, you can claim that, therefore, black birds are ravens. This is called an argument by the contrapositive. Is that too difficult for you? Yeah, no kidding. I've got no idea what you're saying. Butler-sama, what about this example? Let us say that you have 2 boxes, and one of them is a winner with a cookie inside. Of course, the other one is a loser and is empty. For example, here are 2 boxes, where one has a cookie inside and means you win, while the other is empty and means you lose. At this moment, it has a cookie inside equals you win, which implies that you do not win equals it had no cookie inside. When such a relationship exists, the latter is called the contrapositive. When if A then B is true, then if not B, then not A is also true. Well, that's obvious. If the one you guessed was the loser, then you'd automatically know that the other one was the winner. In other words, if you choose the box at random, whether it's the winner or loser, you'll be able to figure out which box has the cookie in it after your first move. That is correct. If the cookie is in the box you opened, then the devil's proof is satisfied. You can directly prove that this box is the winner equals this box has a cookie in it. However, if the box you open is empty, then the reverse, Hempel's Raven, is satisfied. In other words, this box does not have a cookie in it equals this box isn't the winner. And as long as we accept the premise that there are no more than 2 boxes, the contrapositive shows that the other box is automatically the winner. Well, I think I'm starting to see your reasoning. Only poison can stop poison, and only twisted logic can stop twisted logic. Well, then what? How does that overturn my claim that because there's definitely a 19th human hidden on this island, even if all 18 people have alibis, I still won't have to accept witches? Very well. I will teach you about my move. First of all, you are stating that the culprit is not among the 18 equals the culprit is a 19th person. So if you use the contrapositive, it ends up like this. In short, the culprit is not a 19th person equals the culprit is one of the 18. Huh? What do you mean? Only that I've countered your move. Let's try and keep things simple. Ronobe, explain. It seems you've made things easy enough for Battler to understand with your cookie in a box analogy. Then forgive my presumption. Allow me to explain my earlier example once more. Allow me to repeat my earlier story about 2 treasure boxes, one of which has a cookie in it. In this situation, you have an 18-person box and a 19th person box. So the cookie represents the culprit. Battler-sama, let's say you open the 18-person box. Because the cookie is not there, you've paradoxically proven that therefore the cookie is in the 19th person box. That lets us make an even more paradoxical claim. In other words, if it was first shown that the 19th person box was empty, it would prove at the same time that the cookie is in the 18-person box. Battler-sama played this move in order to avoid having to doubt any of the 18, but it's now been used to prepare an 18-person attack. What the hell? If I go first and prove that the inside of the 19th person box is empty, you will automatically have to accept that the cookie is in the 18-person box. All I've done is say it the other way around, yes? So, that move I was so confident in was actually a double-edged sword? That's right. As soon as you played that move and attempted to explain everything with a 19th person, you'd already taken on the risk that you might be forced to accept that the culprit was one of the 18. I see. Hempel's Raven. So this is a countering technique? Wait, if I really think about it, this counter is really disadvantageous to me. This isn't a cookie we're talking about. If I imagine that the loser treasure chest actually has a bomb in it, it gets even clearer. And there aren't just 2 treasure chests, but 18 plus 1 more for the 19th person. If you think of it as a total of 19 boxes, it gets even easier to picture. First off, one of the premises of the human culprit theory is that the bomb will definitely be in one of these boxes. I didn't want to place the bomb in the boxes for any of the 18, so I used the devil's proof and created the 19th person box so I could throw the bomb in there. That much was fine. But then Beatrice struck back. Now if the contents of the 19th person box are empty, that'll automatically mean that the bomb's in one of the other 18 boxes. If I could examine what's inside all 18 of those boxes, then as long as I can show that the bomb isn't in any of them, I'll be able to safely show that the 18 are innocent. If that were possible, I'd have nothing to fear. However, in reality, that'll be almost absolutely impossible. The police wouldn't come here in this typhoon. We don't have access to scientific investigations or experts or anything. In short, we can't prove anything decisively. It'll be impossible for me to find any proof other than simply gulping down whatever alibis each of the 18 give. That means I personally have to prove their innocence, and I have to do it perfectly. Like by staying with them the whole time and never letting them out of my sight for a second. By doing that, I could probably be sure of that person's innocence. Sure that the bomb isn't in their box. However, in practical terms, that'll be impossible. In other words, I'd have to expend an incredible effort just to check the contents of one box. And there are 18 of them. In other words, unless I bound all 18 of them in chains and watch over them, it'll be impossible to prove that all of them have empty boxes. However, Beato only has to open one box, the 19th person box, and show that it's empty to prove that the bomb's in one of the other 18 boxes. Furthermore, there's no need for it to show which of the 18 boxes has the bomb. I've got 18 times more work to do to explain my pet theory than Beatrice does for hers. When a devil's proof exists in the world, it takes a vast amount of effort to argue against it, and there are many cases in which it's impossible to do because of the situation. However, Hempel's Raven turns that problem around and makes it possible to prove things easily. By using Hempel's Raven, various reckless arguments become possible to prove true or false. For example, let us say I make the proposition that all humans except me equal foolish. Normally, I would have to examine all of humanity except myself and show that they all are foolish. However, in reality, it would be impossible to investigate billions of people. It's just the same sort of effort you'd need to open all 18 boxes. However, by using Hempel's Raven, the contrapositive of that proposition would change into this. If you, to use your phrase, spin the chessboard around on the claim that all humans except me equal foolish, you would have to do nothing more than prove that not foolish equals me. And what do you think that means? As soon as I know the fact that I am wise, I will be able to show in an instant that every one of the billions of people in the human race is foolish. In less than a second, I could finish proving that the entire human race is more foolish than me. It truly is the strongest and fastest QED in the world. This Hempel's Raven. What a ridiculous argument. It is a very, very convenient move. Not only demons, but gods also use it. When they propose that the blessed equals the servants of a god, the contrapositive is a human that is not a servant of a god equals he must not be blessed. So in order to prove that servants of God are blessed with divine protection, they only have to bring ill fortune down upon those people who don't receive such protection. So, by bringing misfortune down upon those who don't believe in them, they prove their blessedness. Oops. That was some tea. I also was gonna save very quickly. And probably take a break real quick. Okay, made sure to save twice. I'm gonna bop you over to the pause screen for a sec. And I'm even gonna give you some music to listen to. Hell yeah. I'm gonna be right back. And we're back. Let me just get the sound back up. And also I'm noticing that my alert isn't working, so I'm just gonna manually boot this up a little. There we go. That should have posted automatically, but it's not doing it. I don't know why. Oh well. No big deal. But yes, hello. Let's dive right back in. I probably won't continue for much longer, but yeah, probably. Because I have an idea of what's coming up. I'm gonna save that for next week. But we'll at least finish this scene. An enormous cost is required to give humans happiness. However, it takes a lot less to bring humans misfortune. So, by using Hempelt's Raven, gods are actually giving believers the joy of divine protection for cheap. You demon. It's a demon's argument. That's crazy. It seems we've gone off topic. Let us get back to the point. The move for my counterattack is complete. And now, in response to your claim that the 19th person is the culprit, therefore, the 18 are innocent and the witch doesn't exist. I say, therefore, if I can prove that the culprit is not some 19th person, we can be sure that the culprit is either one of the 18 or the witch. Right? For a while I just stood there, shocked, completely forgetting to close my mouth. Just when I thought I'd countered one of their strong points, their counterattack had been this reckless argument that I couldn't have possibly have anticipated. Is this going to be impossible after all? To continue denying the witch on an island with no more than 18 people, then still believe in the innocence of those 18 people? Is that just a delusion? Am I just trying to escape reality? Not yet. Don't give up on this desperate struggle yet. Who cares about whoever's a raven? They're just trying to confuse me by bringing up weird bits of trivia. I used the devil's proof. Don't feel uncertain about something you've used once. Believe in the spear you've drawn. And then forcefully gouge it in. We're still in the opening part of the game. Do you plan to keep thinking on this level? Wait a sec. I want to be sure. I'll admit I talked about a 19th person to keep it simple, but if we're going to use the devil's proof to raise the number of people above 18, then we'd have no way of knowing if there were 10 people, 100 people, or an indeterminate amount of people. There's always one more than you assume. Get it? They countered my twisted logic with something even more twisted. So the only thing that could counter that would be even crazier twisted logic. I see. Even if I somehow prove an alibi for the 19th person, as soon as I do, you will think of a 20th person and claim that they are the culprit. By repeating this endlessly, you would make it so I kept searching for their alibis for all eternity. I see. Just like a demon king summoning a plague of locusts. I wouldn't expect anything less from Kinzo's grandchild. It looks like you have been gifted with a talent in summoning. In short, it's impossible to always prove an alibi for each person X outside of the first 18. How do you like that, Beato? Now that I know we're having a battle with twisted logic, I won't lose. How foolish. Who do you think I am? I am the Endless Witch. The thought that you could challenge me endlessly is just absurd. Endless control means that I am able to kill endlessly. When your 19th person folds, you will summon a 20th. And when your 20th person folds, you will summon a 21st. And when your 21st person folds and your 22nd person folds, you will summon a 23rd person, a 34th person, a very big numberth person. Did you think you'd have me at your mercy for all eternity? I laugh at infinite regress. The infinite doesn't work against me. Well then, how will you kill my endless? Just try and show me. I have the power to speak the truth in red. Here it comes. When I speak in red, it will contain absolutely no illusions. If I say once in red that there are no more than 100 people on this island, you will no longer be permitted to create a 101st person. See, battling. What truth shall I tell in red this time? Where shall I strike for the kill and force you into hopelessness? Come, show me your usual frightened face. Isn't he great? What? Why are you laughing? I wonder what kind of creepy look I had on my face as I laughed right then. That red sure is scary. Every time it jumps out, I'm driven into the depths of hopelessness. But I've already realized something. There's no need to be overly afraid of the red. You brought out your trump card again. So, how and for what will Beatrice-sama use the red this time? What do you mean by that? Suddenly looking so relaxed? Sorry, but I was waiting for you to take out that blood-red treasured sword of yours. Let's see, what'll you proclaim in red this time? You aren't going to say, the culprit was one of those 18 people, are you? Be careful, since that'd be self-destruction for you, right? That'd be the same as throwing away your own witch theory yourself. A complete resignation. That's right. The red wasn't always a weapon that works in Beato's favor alone. It was the other way around. If she used it the wrong way, it was dangerous enough that she could bring about her own death. If she used it carelessly and said something that ended up denying herself, that'd be exactly the same as self-destructing. Of course, it'd be sad and difficult for me to accept if you told me in the red that one of the 18 was the culprit. No matter who the culprit actually was, I'd definitely have to deal with some tough emotions. But before that, it would mean your defeat. Saying in red that the culprit is a human is equivalent to your proclamation of resignation. If you wanted us to finish each other off in a simultaneous clash, I'd say that's a pretty interesting move. However, this particular battle will end in my victory. Beatrice's red was her true trump card. When that person speaks in red, it's definitely the truth, and no amount of proof or counter-arguments can change that. Until now, she's used that to severely wound me, and each time, the tiny foundation supporting my heart gets split in half. However, if she uses it carelessly, then I can also glean a little information about the truth. In the last game, I used that to my advantage, especially during the chapel's closed room trick, and almost completely got her boxed in at one point. But she was pretty sly herself. She learned from experience, and since then, she started using discretion in the timing of her red. This feeling of tension was almost literally like a battle with real swords. This is a high-level intellectual battle. No, not an intellectual battle. This really is twisted logic. This was the world's craziest and worst battle of twisted logic. Okay, now it's time to hear your plan. That's right, to use your Hempel's Raven. First, you'll have to confirm in red how many humans there are other than the 18. And after that, If you proclaim in red that none of the people in this group are the culprit, that's right, that might be a fatal wound to me. I'm surprised that you no longer have even an atom of fear for the red, which once terrified you so much. You're quite resilient. Try taking it out. That treasured sword, that trump card of yours. This time, you might be able to make me surrender with a single stroke, right? Interesting. I wouldn't have it any other way. Agitate her. Challenge her. Drive her into a corner to make her speak in red. Of course, her red's always wiping out my only rays of hope. But don't be afraid of that. On this island, overcome with falsehoods and delusions, the only thing I can trust is the information she speaks in red. It's my only way across the chasm of hell. Just a single tightrope. Her merciless blood-red blade is the only way I can survive. This is just walking on a tightrope. It's like literally walking on the edge of a blade. Of course I'm afraid. Because my victory condition is the denial of witches, then to use her contrapositive logic, the culprit must be human. But I didn't want to search for a culprit amid the 18. That's what made me stick to a weak position, since I had to claim both that it couldn't be a witch and that it couldn't be one of the 18. Last time I was unable to understand that, so that's where she hit me, leaving me tattered and defeated. But that's okay. Let her hit me. Let her attack. No problem. Someone said it once in an old sword-fighting movie, that a good fortress has one, and only one, intentionally weak point. The enemy would gather there. They would be lured there. And that would be where the actual battle took place. As long as I understood my weak points, and as long as she wanted to attack those weak points, it was as if I were luring her into launching an attack there. Gauge the distance between us with care, retreating step by step. Make them move forward. The more she recklessly flourished that red, the more chances I would get to strike back. Don't be afraid of the red. Keep her cornered so that she'll have no choice but to refute me with a red. No matter how oppressively she speaks in red, that's right, that red itself is the same as fresh blood leaking from her wounds. So, what's wrong? First of all, why don't you tell me how many people are on this island total? If you don't, your raven can't cut me up. How surprising that you can be this desperate and yet this difficult. One cannot make light of someone putting their life on the line no matter what the error. It's no surprise you're Kinzo's grandchild. The more cornered you are, the bolder you become. Ronovic cleared his throat. It appears to be a stalemate. That black tea I worked so hard to make is getting cold, milady. Ronovic, who was supposed to be her ally, roguishly rushed her into making her next move. Beato probably thought she'd managed to smile back and appear confident, but she couldn't hide the sweat building up on her forehead. By now, she had completely lost the confident feeling that had allowed her to turn her nose up at her worthless opponent. Of course, she probably wouldn't be cornered by something like this. She's just being cautious. Until now, I've been inexperienced. I didn't know how to fight, and I wasn't strong enough to be her opponent. However, now that we've reached the third game, she's realized that I'm starting to become more skilled, and she's grown more cautious, thinking every move over carefully. Sure. That's just fine, Beatrice. Sorry to keep you waiting. Are you happy now? Now it's starting to get interesting, huh? Battler. This isn't getting us anywhere. Then, should we get to the heart of the matter and go with the usual? The usual, you say? Then, by all means. If I don't hear you say that, I guess I just won't feel like starting. The first move was mine. Here I go, Beato. Repeat it. On this island, there are only 18 people. If I hear you say this in red, I'll have no choice but to suspect one of the 18. I won't be able to say a 19th person did it, so all doors will be closed to me. However, I believe the culprit definitely isn't one of the 18. There's no way any of those 18 could commit such brutal murders. I'll say it again. Repeat it. On this island, there are only 18 people. I refuse. I won't say why. Phew. I'd avoided what would have been the worst red for me. If she'd repeated that, I'd be faced with those two worst choices of accepting the witch or suspecting one of the 18. Like last time, all over again. But Beato hadn't proclaimed my ultimate and greatest weakness in red. She refused to repeat it, even though there was no reason for her not to strike, even though it was a weakness she should have been drooling at. She hadn't sliced me up with red by using that move, which should have been as good as forking a rook and the king. This was a big sign of my advantage. That's right, the culprit isn't one of the 18. I won't suspect anyone. And since the culprit isn't a witch either, it means a 19th person exists on this island. And that's you. A person who, as grandfather's mistress of 30 years, not 90. What? Mistress of 30 years has been secretly living inside a hidden mansion in the forest for a long, long time. The human Beatrice. That's right. You aren't a witch or anything like it. You're just a human who's been living on this island and hiding for several decades. Did you just call me the endless witch who has lived for over 1,000 years a human? For a while, Beatrice continued to laugh unpleasantly and gloatingly, or maybe spitefully. Are you ready? I'll keep going. Again, repeat it. There are 19 people or more on this island. Beatrice fell silent once again. She'd probably remain extremely cautious as long as confirming the number of humans on this island might give her some large disadvantage, depending on the situation. The red has already become a foothold for my counterattacks. Now that we know this, it makes the red very risky for the witch. But if she couldn't repeat this, her Hempel's Raven wouldn't be effective. To break my devil's proof, she would need to settle the existence of a number of people outside the 18 in red. That's right. She couldn't break the existence of a 19th person unless she would use red. I've closed Beato in, giving her no choice but to speak in red. There really is a way to fight in this witch's game. It's okay to refuse. If you can't say it in red, that means there's a total of 18 plus X people on this island. That X is a pretty massive piece to lose on your first move, right? After all, from now on, all of the tricks that were impossible for the 18 can be explained with a human X who isn't in that group. This huge piece can break open all the rooms you said were closed because everyone had an alibi. It was just like how a chess bishop can cut a thin line through enemy forces as long as there's a slight gap. It could only be effectively used on squares of the same color, but it was very good at controlling territory on the board. It looked like Beato also noticed her current plight. She couldn't just let such an important piece go, especially this close to the beginning of the game. If she pulled out her red treasured sword, it wouldn't be that difficult to save herself from this. But Beato was completely aware that I was expecting it. She was afraid that the careless red truth might end up strangling her own neck. Because, in the first place, a witch is something that ought to be denied in red. Believe, don't doubt. Witches don't exist. Something like that couldn't exist in this world. They can only exist in the valleys between truths. They have a fragile existence curled up in these cracks, frantically trying to protect themselves from the brutal winds of truth. And they can only barely exist like a mirage by surviving on falsehoods and delusions. In other words, the red, which only witches can use, is the reality that might easily deny their very being. The more they brandish their red swords, the more they begin to lose, bit by bit, that crack in truth inside which they can endure. That's why they don't want to use red words and carelessly lose that crack in truth, which is based on fuzzy information, or illusions, in other words. That's because they understand that they're gradually being cornered. Of course, that bastard will never admit it, because if she did, it'd be the same as admitting that she's something that can't exist in this world, like an imaginary number. Don't be afraid. Stay strong. I know that she's the one who's really been pierced at the bone. After all, her red treasured sword can't be used without a lot of preparation. What's wrong? I'll say it again. Repeat it. There are 19 people or more on this island. I refuse. Also, I would love to hear that explanation later. If you still remember it. At the end of Beato's worrying, she took a single deep breath and quietly announced her refusal. I thought she'd use it. But Beato refused to speak in red, even though it would cost her victory in the opening part of the game. You refused? Which means that, from now on, I can create as many fictional character X's outside of the 18 as I want? Do as you wish. I refuse to repeat what you have told me. Isn't that enough for now? The reason for my refusal is... No, I won't tell you yet. Anyway, you'll know soon enough. Still acting tough, I see. Choosing not to use the red is another way of using it. You called it my red treasured sword. A pleasant metaphor. I will use it too. A treasured sword is at its best when it is sheathed. In fact, there are times it can instill even more fear because it is sheathed. That's right. As I fight, I always have to keep in mind whether you might spin everything around with those red words. It's some pretty serious pressure. And there are also times when you make things pretty tough by refusing to repeat after me. Those times I can't tell if you can't repeat because my guess was right, or if you're just misleading me and letting me flounder about. If you think of it that way, yeah, it's a sheathed, treasured sword. So what? If I'm going to push you off a cliff anyway, best let you climb a bit higher first. We have still barely begun. Much is left to come. I'll resign from this challenge. Go and get drunk on your faint victory for now, but only for now. Alright, I think that's a good point to quit. Oh, there's our boy. He bakes really good cookies. I love them too. I really, really do. Gosh. We've been playing this game for such a long time now. Since December. Holy shit. including New Year's? That's wild. Not sure that's actually accurate. Anyway, there we go. I'll put this on mute so you don't get constant wind noises in the background. Get some. Oh, hold on. Get some music. Alright. Yeah. Thank you again, as always, for watching. I was chaos incarnate throughout this whole stream. I hope it didn't carry across too much. Sorry about that. I hope next episode will be a bit smoother, but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you just have one of those days. This is one of those days. Not in a bad way. I'm just brain active today. Yeah, next episode is gonna be so good. Don't miss it if you have the chance, if you have the opportunity to not miss the next one, next week, Wednesday. We're gonna, unless I'm wrong about the timing, I don't think I am, but man, is it gonna be, it's gonna be so interesting. Earth-shattering, you might even say. So, you know, if you can manage to be there, I think you're gonna have a great time. Blech. I'm gonna stop talking now because it's getting harder and harder as we keep doing that, as I keep doing it. Thank you for not watching more of the game. I know that the wait can be rough, but I promise it'll be worth it. Especially since the anime is garbage. I'm sorry, it's just bad. But yes, okay. Thank you for watching. We will be back next week with more. I'm gonna post the VODs on YouTube and on Twitch from now on. I'm gonna keep those updated. So keep an eye on those if you can't make it to the streams. And yeah, have a great day. Have a great week. See you next time.